Welcome to Intake. If you haven't already, why don't you hit the subscribe button and then the notification button so each time we drop an episode, you will be notified. It's time to shine the light from a mental health perspective. Welcome back to Beneath It All in the African American Community, Episode 3, Part 2.
People need to be able to speak freely and openly and not feel that they're going to be judged. And yes, that implicit bias does extend to judgment. There have been providers in my classrooms who have absolutely judged people, and made decisions about, like, what kind of parent are you that you would do this or wouldn't do that? Or, you've had a teenage girl, you've had 4 lovers or 5 lovers. Oh my goodness. And, I remember asking the provider, so what are you thinking? And he was like, she's a whore. And I said, okay, well, let's process why you think she's a whore. Let's go through that. And there are times there were things that were said that were troubling, but it wasn't troubling in a way where I internalized it. It was really about, I need to be able to provide a platform for you to be honest, because that's how you'll change. That's how you'll learn once you get information. And he was one of the doctors who really did transform, because he had to understand what are all the factors associated with someone being early onset of sexual activity. Like, what are other factors? Just think about it. Your responsibility is to think about those things in the therapeutic situation, not just to jump to a conclusion. And you want to be able to recognize your triggers.
I like what both you and Dr. Bernadin said. Gina, one thing I heard when you were speaking about these biases, can I say that these racial biases also cross over into the mental health field?
Oh, absolutely.
Yes. I
Absolutely.
have been in situations where I have had my Caucasian coworker say about an African American child that he or she had just seen that, oh, they just don't want to do right because all they want to do is just be a thug.
Absolutely.
And I've had to correct them and help them understand adverse childhood experiences, which is nothing more than trauma. So if you have a young boy who is acting out, we know that trauma, first of all, you're very hypervigilant. With adverse childhood experiences, a lot of times you see violence. You've experienced that. Not only do you come from poor neighborhoods, and this is across the board. This is across the board with African American, Caucasians, Hispanics. They can all come from poor neighborhoods. But for some reason, when it comes to an African American child who shows the same symptoms as a Caucasian, and only way they know how to express themselves is with profanity, then now they are the thug. And you don't take in the fact that there are a lot of adverse childhood experiences that are going on with these young people. But not even that. When not treated, it crosses over into adulthood. And so we have to start looking at these things and start talking about them, because there is a perception that needs to be addressed. But still, there are biases, biases based on our experiences within our racial community, media, what we see, what we've heard, and then we continue those perceptions. And it is unfortunate to the client, to the patient, because, again, it doesn't help them with being treated with the issue at hand. Because a lot of times you're not listening. I work with teens and adults, and trust me, I have them across the board, races, culture, no matter what. When you work with a teen, you're going to always hear some anger and some explicits. And as an adult, I have to help them be comfortable with communicating the best way they can without judgment. If that's the only way you can get it out, then I need you to get it out so that I can help you. And so we got to stop looking at it that way just because of the color of a person's skin. Because if we continue this and don't address it, we're really not helping in the helping field. By no means. We're not helping. And we have to deal with the historical trauma that is going on. Dr. Bernadin, before you go, I want to ask you, what advice would you give a patient on how to prepare before they go in to see their physician?
So I guess that's a very loaded question. And the reason why I say that is because I think, one, I just want to address what type of visit, when you're going to see your doctor. So typically, physical exams, some offices will allow or they'll schedule physical and new patient visits for about 30 minutes. If it is a new patient visit, then that is a good time for you to bring up a lot of your questions or concerns about your health. But again, taking into the account that it is a 30-minute visit, and what should be brought up are the pertinent things that are really high on your list that are worrying you. Obviously, chest pain is a big one, difficulty breathing. Things that you know are not right are things that you should be bringing to your doctor's attention, especially when it's the first time that you're meeting the doctor. During physicals, unfortunately, I hate to break it to you, a lot of people don't know this, but physical exams are prevention. They are well visits. They are everything is okay. It's not a time to really come in and say, this, everything that's going wrong, fix me. And I think that's a misconception among healthcare providers and insurance companies that don't explain that to their patients, because they think, well, I'm coming here for my physical, so that means I want you to run the gamut on me. I want you to address everything because it's a physical. That means you gotta fix me, doc. And they don't realize that the minute you bring up an issue, some doctors will address the issue while others will say, make a follow-up appointment for the issue, depending on what the issue is. But if you are getting a physical and bring up an issue, then you will also get a bill for the issue, and that's not covered as a physical. So you have to keep in mind, what is it that you're going to the doctor for? If this is a doctor that you've been seeing for a long period of time for your diabetes, hypertension, or you're just going to them because you have questions, then my recommendation is, if you are a chronic diabetic or a chronic hypertensive and you're very well controlled, everything is pretty good, and you're just coming for your follow-up, then that's the time for you to ask whatever questions you need to ask about your diabetes. How can you get off the meds? Or what are some things you should be doing to improve the diabetes? Things like that. If your diabetes is poorly controlled and something else is going on, it's still important to bring it up, because poorly controlled diabetes can cause a slew of other things. And as a physician, we need to know. And honestly, a good doctor will also make sure that you're not leaving their practice with chest pains, with heart palpitations. They'll make sure that you're not having random episodes of passing out. That will, a good doctor will make sure you wouldn't leave and not have asked some of those, questions, especially based off of your medical conditions. But if that is not the case, it is important to bring up the pressing things that are not right. It's not right. If you're having chest pain, if you're passing out, you're having difficulty breathing, laying on your back, or just walking 2 feet, it's not right. You need to bring it up. Don't get mad if your doctor runs out of time because they can't address the toe pain or the fungus on your toe. Things like that. Not saying it's not important, but it's the pertinent and the pressing issues that you should address during your follow-up visits, unless you made a visit for that toe pain or for the toe fungus. So I think it's important for you to, if you know something is going on, make write your list and make sure you rank them in order of importance to you. Sometimes it's even best to just bring your list to the doctor and say, this is the things I want to look at. And the doctor will look at the list and say, okay, well, these are the things that I think we need to address today. And then we'll bring you back next week or in 2 weeks and address some other things. Because the doctor can look at the list and say, this is not right. This is a major concern. We need to address these things today. I think if you don't understand something, especially regarding your lab results, it's very important to call the office. There's a thing called MyChart now. A lot of offices are using, emails that you can go back and forth with your doctor. You don't understand what a lab means, ask. That's the only way you're going to get an answer. And if you don't like the answer, then you tell them, I don't understand. Can you explain this to me? Do I need to make a follow-up visit for you to, explain to me what this means and what this can mean in the long run? I think it's important because you have to advocate for your health. And, as just as much as the doctor should, but you should be the main one. And I think whenever you come into a physician-doctor relationship, you should look at it just as that. It's a relationship. It's not whatever the doctor says goes. It's we work together to make you better. And we work together for your health. So I think, whenever it comes time for you to interview a doctor, figure out who the perfect match is for you, you want to make sure it's a team effort and they are working with you and not against you. And I think when you have that dynamic, then you won't be afraid to ask questions, or you won't be afraid to say, I don't understand, break it down. I think it's very important for patients to feel comfortable with their doctors, to open up and ask questions, even if they don't know how to ask the questions. It's just important that they just say, I don't know, I don't get it, explain it. And I think the way to do that is what I was saying before, interview your doctors. When you new patients, when you go in that room, I'm not saying, oh, what are your credentials, but interviewing of a doctor is how is the doctor towards you? When you ask a question, do they explain it to the best of their ability where you can understand it? And if you don't understand it, can they bring it back and put it into terms that you can understand? Are they willing to work with you and not just say, forget you? That's really how you interview your doctor. I mean, it's not all of us are qualified. We've all gone through training. We've all, done the boards. We've all done residency. So we're all qualified. It's just a matter of, are we qualified to work with you in a partnership? So that's my long spiel as to how to.
I think it was a great long spiel, very much needed. And hopefully it will help a lot of people because, again, we do tend to think, including myself, I'm guilty, that when I go to the doctor, even, for, sinuses, if something else is going on, I should bring it up. And I don't understand that a lot of time doctors are on this time frame based on insurance, a lot of, different things. And so they're just really trying to address that issue that you came in with. And so understanding that, I think will help a lot of people so that they'll know how to, do what is necessary or the best option for themselves when they go into the doctor. And don't always count it as, oh, this doctor is ignoring me, but this doctor is trying to address what I came in for. And so if I, have anything else, maybe I should give them a list and let the doctor say, okay, this is more important and let's wait for this. I think that will help a lot of people out. And I thank you for that. I thank you for being on the show. I thank you for being my daughter. I thank you for all those great things. Thank you for joining us in this conversation. I really appreciate your assistance, and I'm hoping that it will help a lot of people better understand from the medical aspect. Have a great day, Dr. Bernadin. Thank you for being on the show.
Thank you for having me. Thank you, ladies.
Okay, ladies. So Dr. Bernadin gave a lot of good information. What she brought up is that sometimes people are more comfortable with someone who looks like them. And again, we have qualified individuals in the helping field across the board. regardless of race. However, we do need to take in consideration, like she said, if this person is qualified to help me as an individual. That means answering the questions, explain it to me when I don't understand. That is the most important thing. I hear it a lot of times from people in general that will not go and see a therapist because I only want an African-American therapist. And they feel like it's hard to find one, but they don't realize that they're out there. And they feel like if I see an African-American therapist, that they won't judge me and they'll understand me better because they look like me. So it happens. But the best thing is to understand that we have to deal with it on an individual basis. And if you're in an area where all you have is, closest thing to you, or depending on your insurance, is to see someone outside of your community, then take time to talk to them and vet them to see if they're qualified for you. That's it. Qualified for you.
Well, I think Gina said something that was very important. It's being able to have a communication with your healthcare provider, with your mental health provider. And ultimately, we're all seeking optimum health. If I walk into a clinic, it's not a good match or a good fit. I've got to find someone who's willing to help me. And I think in the African-American community, it's about feeling empowered and knowing that you have the ability to do that. And ultimately, it's not the health clinic that's around the corner from your house that's going to really address your diabetes, your stroke that you think you had a month or two ago, but never really went to follow up at the doctor. So you want to achieve optimum health. You have to have a relationship with a doctor that you're comfortable with. Mm-hmm. And when you have a physical, I always tell my clients, your physical is your first point of contact. It's a wellness check. It's definitely a time to say, okay, these are the things I'm experiencing. And at that point, the doctor should say, okay, let's run some blood work. Here's a script. Go get your blood work done. It's a good time to start as an introductory to go out and get some lab tests, to get some other workups done. And then you reschedule to come back to discuss the outcome. But it's a lot of times we do walk into clinics or places. If you don't have the commercial health insurance, you get treated differently. You wait longer. People that are paying money for the best health insurance do get the better service because doctors can bill. So we also have to look at our healthcare providers, our mental health people are in school. They are well educated. They do have all the qualifications. Now you have to know how to talk to your patients, how to treat your patients, and techniques like motivational interviewing, techniques like when you go in as a doctor, you say, okay, how can I help you? Because it's not just being able to treat your diabetes. I want to help you achieve optimum health, get off your medication or taper off some of your medication. So you always have to go in wanting to have a conversation. Because you are on a health insurance that is less than, does not make it okay to accept less than perfect health care. And oftentimes we have to begin to educate our own people in our community that you are the ultimate voice for your health. You have to speak up. And if you are having chest pains, the local clinic is not where you go.
Yeah.
It's the ER, it's the urgent care. That's urgent. Once you're treated, then you go to your local doctor and you schedule the appointment and say, can you go over this with me? I was having heart palpitations. What does this mean? But as a mental health counselor, I always tell my clients that, you are empowered. Your voice counts. It does matter.
Yeah. And I think it's important too. You said it perfect, that it's about empowerment. And that's what we have to teach people as clinicians when they come and see us. It's about empowerment. Help them get a voice. Gina, you said it well. A lot of African Americans have a difficult time expressing how they feel. And we can go back on, back in history and see where that comes from. And so, and not only that, but the historical narrative that followed all of this slavery that said your voice doesn't count. And so a lot of people, unfortunately, don't know how, first of all, to identify what they're feeling. So it becomes difficult to express what they're feeling. So we have to teach people how to do that, because in doing so, we empower them to advocate for themselves. We empower them to know that you do have a voice.
Right.
Yeah, definitely. One thing I want to do is I want to shift the conversation first, because I started off about this in inferior perception about African Americans in the U.S. And in order to understand that, we have to look at eugenics. And so eugenics, with this Charles Davenport, the founder of the Eugenic Record Office. Eugenics, when it was founded, and we all know, and we still see it today, it was founded upon the idea that the superior white race was the stronger race. And anything outside of that was the weaker and cheaper race. He was so strong on his ideas that he actually wanted to build a wall around the country to keep out Black, brown, and yellow people. So we see that today. And there was this whole idea of, look, let's preserve the whiter race, because the whiter race was a superior race. Of course, eugenics also looked at if you had more wealth, then you were genetically prone as superior, because it showed that by your wealth. And so this is the whole idea behind seeing African Americans and other people of color, Hispanics as well, as genetically inferior. The genesis of eugenics was to reinforce white supremacy by establishing a theory of breeding a better human race that guided ideas around African American slaves and Indians as being savages and beast-like. With enslavement of Blacks and encounters with American Indians, colonized individuals began rationalizing slavery by viewing Blacks and Indians as inferior. This type of thinking led to the growth of racist, ethnocentric ideas that guided early Europeans to view all non-Europeans as below them. Eugenics, also known as racial science, has a long and disturbing history, but the premises of the science was to determine which individuals and groups were fit and which were unfit for society using race, mental and physical disabilities, country origin, and poverty. The ideas around this scientific racism was to rid American society from genetically inferior humans, partly through involuntary sterilization policies, racist immigration policies, and through de jure and de facto policies organized to limit those identified as unfit. These ideas were widely accepted by politicians, academics, government, intellectuals, the U.S. Supreme Court, and progressives. Part of this false science birthed the idea of drapetomania, which was a theory established by European physician Samuel A. Cartwright that runaway slaves were establishing a type of mania and therefore were mentally ill. In addition were other false beliefs that suggested Blacks had smaller brains and blood vessels and had a tendency to be barbaric, thus establishing the bogus theories of Black inferiority. The eugenic science was later adapted by Nazi Germany. In addition, many African Americans intellectuals like W.E. Du Bois and Thomas Whit Turner, including academic institutions such as Hampton, Howard, and Tuskegee University, also adopted the theory, albeit they believed that the finest of Blacks should be just as good as the finest of whites. DuBose also believed that the talented 10 of all races should mix to improve society. Eugenics, although not often confronted or mentioned in academics or political arenas, continue to influence systematic racism and fuel ideas of a superior white race. Thus, eugenics became the initiating factor around the false beliefs of an inferior black race viewed as violent, ignorant, angry, dangerous, and barbaric, and continues to feed the biases of individuals from all cultures and races, and adversely affects the mental and physical well-being of African Americans. And this is like, we have to start addressing these issues along with the other issues at hand, which is historical trauma. And until we start talking about these ideas and really hitting on them and stop trying to be politically correct, can I just say it that way? Because facts is facts. And you can't get around them no matter how hard you try. The fact is the fact. There is a lot of things going on in the African American community that is affecting both their mental and their physical health. And I think it's important that the helping field starts to address this, starts to deal with the biases, the individual biases that they have, and be honest with it. Gina, I love the work that you said that you did with these residencies, because again, we need it. Can I just say we need it even in mental health, even though we're trained, we need it in mental health?
We do.
We need this because, again, the belief system, it is so difficult to break, especially when media is constantly reinforcing these beliefs. Because all you see is the negative. And of course, even when African Americans are speaking out about injustices, then we are militant people, we're angry people. And we're not angry people, but we are indignant. I love it. Thank you, Gina. We are indignant because of the history that, all of this stuff that we've had to go through. And the truth be told, our communities, we have this collective narrative in our community that says, look, we can't trust these people because all they ever tried to do is to hurt us, so we got to keep ourselves safe. And we see it too often. Thus is why a lot of African Americans don't trust Caucasian doctors, because of this collective narrative. The narrative is that, look, we have this history where European Americans have done nothing but, tried to harm us. And so now we reinforce it in our children. It's go back to the whole idea. We're aware of it. We give our children this speech, this narrative. If you get pulled over by this white cop, just don't make any sudden moves because you don't know what's going to go on. So there's a narrative that we express, and we express it not because we're like, people with all of these false beliefs. We express them because of the experiences. And by ignoring them in the helping field, all we do is validate them. And we have to address them. So when our clients, patients, whomever come to us and talk about these issues, we can't pacify them and just go, oh no, this doesn't exist anymore. We've moved on. Because what you're doing is you're validating their truth that, look, I can't trust you because you're really not hearing me. And you're not hearing me because you haven't experienced what I've experienced. And I think that's key, that we need to continue working on these issues, continue to talking about them, and deal with it. Ladies, do you have anything else you want to say? I do want to say this one thing, because I think it's relevant to the topic. Very relevant. I was at an outing with a few people, and the conversation was brought up about the current pandemic. And all these people were African Americans, and I kept hearing these different discussions. One of them was, and if you were outside of the African American culture, we would just think these people are paranoid. And so these ideas were that, you know, this virus isn't real. It's just another way for European Americans to kill off our culture. I even heard one person say, don't go and get tested because they're trying to put a device under our skin to locate us wherever we go. And I had to say, darling, they've been doing that already with the cell phone. So you can't get around that. But there are concerns, even in the pandemic. There are concerns, and they're justified concerns. And so we have to start talking about them and addressing them. A lot of them I just had to sit there and listen to because I thought it was important just for them to be able to, you know, speak. And although I wasn't there as a mental health counselor, I was just there as a family member and friend. But a lot of them had some ideas about what's going on even currently. And so we have to start talking about these things and hopefully help people deal with them. I know for both of my parents who are no longer here, that was one of the concerns. Even with me being my mother's healthcare person, I took her to all her doctor's appointments and everything. I had a couple of times I had to actually talk with her doctors about, you know, overlooking her concerns, to the point that her concerns were overlooked so much that they didn't address them, and she died with an aneurysm. And she died with this aneurysm because she had been complaining for months about feeling water in her ear and having, you know, these headaches. But she also had hypertension. And they kept saying they were going to get the scan of her head and would never get the scan. And I was constantly calling them like, no, you have to get this appointment set up. Because, you know, her way her insurance was, they had to send out a referral. It never happened. And so she passed away with an aneurysm. So it's important that we start really talking about the issues, addressing them, and not trying to be politically correct. And I think we're past being politically correct, and we just need to be factual and talk about facts. So ladies, again, I want to thank you for joining me on this series. You all are great individuals. You bring so much to the table. I appreciate you. Any last things you want to say before we end it today?
Well, just a comment about bringing things to the table and being factual. And I think we've mentioned this before, that this is definitely the time to do that. Bringing it to the table, being factual. And a lot of our behaviors as people of color, as African Americans in America, we've been quiet for a long time. That's what we've been conditioned to do, oftentimes told to do. And I think now you're going to see a shift in, you know, accountability, with people being able to speak up for themselves and say, no, this is not okay. And I'm also learning when I'm at the table and coworkers say, well, I'm not racist. I like all colors. I like all people. No, Black lives don't matter. I mean, right? All lives matter. I'm now learning to challenge that and have intellectual discussions around it, because in the moment, Black lives do matter, and that's where I'm at, you know. And I'm a trained social worker, a mental health therapist. Of course, I agree, all lives matter, you know, but Black lives matter, and I think this stuff is being brought to the forefront, and we've got to discuss it. We have to address it. We're in for this movement is in for a long haul, but we can't stop here. Yeah.
I agree completely. And when I think about the hashtag Black Lives Matter, to me, it's a partial sentence, like a partial scripture in a Bible. You know, your lives has always mattered, but Black lives matter too. And that's what that hashtag always meant. It was always an assertion that we know that your lives matter. It's always mattered. We're just trying to say to you that ours matter too. Black Lives Matter. People have taken it, twisted it, and done all kinds of things with it, but that's all it has ever meant. And this is why I think it's really important that, yes, like Evelyn said, we need to join the conversation. And we need to understand the strategy in joining the conversation. Yes, it's not, I would rather be not politically correct to avoid a conversation. I'd rather have the conversation if I cross the line of being politically incorrect, because I am expressing my voice. And it's fueled with feelings. So people have a lot of feelings behind what they're saying. And when people finally open their mouths, they're just going to speak. And sometimes it is not going to be palatable for other people. And I get that. But it's not designed to squelch you, to hurt you. It's really about me emancipating myself. So what I learned, especially with colleagues, with doctors, is that I sometimes will teach, will provide information, but sometimes I will ask them questions, and I will force them to deconstruct and support their position. And sometimes that is the greatest teacher for them. When I ask them, please define that, please validate what you're saying. Tell me more. I'm not understanding it. Why are they thugs? Explain to me, why do you think they're thugs? Because I'm interested. If that's the way you see them, it's a valid way of you seeing them, because it's valid to you. So just give me the basis by which you've drawn that conclusion. Because it's, in certain cases, we have to be mindful as people of color, as clinicians, that talking sometimes doesn't hit, doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And what does matter, though, is when they have to substantiate their claims and then cannot. There goes the opportunity to teach. So we have to be so equipped in so many different ways to have, it's not just having conversation, we have to be ready for action all the time and everywhere. And we get that from mutual support like we have here, from opening up the platform through Intake Talk Show to be able to have these conversations. And it forces us, I know that we go back to our routines and we think about the conversations we've had, and it really expands the way that we think, we see each other. We're like, wait a minute, it really is about this, and we need to just continue. We need that synergistic energy among ourselves just to keep the conversation going. We need the support, because we'll get tired. We will get weary. We will get frustrated. And that's sometimes why we're silent, because the mind sometimes just, it's enough. You need to shut down for a moment. You feel the hopelessness, you feel the helplessness, and then you have to be encouraged and inspired and get back in there and have that conversation. So this is why this is an exciting time for us, because we're not only going to learn more, we're going to help each other to have those conversations and have them powerfully. And this is a platform that's doing it for us, because we are inspired. I'm learning so much, not just being able to share what I've experienced, but I'm learning so much from both of you and from all the other participants who contribute to this conversation. And there's so much more to talk about, but I'm going to guarantee you one thing: we will begin to see the congruency in history. We will be able to see it. See, what we're trying to get to is the root of the issue. Why we're so distracted by everything is because it's the branches. It's all the branches flying around, and we're tackling each branch. We are tackling the root of it. And the root is very clear, very simplistic. People talk around it a lot, but the root of the issue is that there is a lot of implicit everything in the society when it comes to people of color. And there is plan after plan, strategy after strategy. It's a lot of conditioning, not on both parts, that why these things keep getting fostered. But there's always an opportunity to peel back the banana, to peel it back, to peel back the onion and say, no, this is where we're at. This is where we're at. So I'm looking forward to keeping the conversation going. I'm looking to inspiring others to speak to, to open up the conversation. Because, at some point we're going to be like, yeah, you guys keep saying it, keep talking. Because we're getting older and we're getting tired. And So the younger generation is, I hope, and I know for Evelyn, this is really major because of just so many youth and young adults that she impacts every day, and really wanting them to be able to have a free mind to really test what it is they're being told and what it is they believe, and is it really true? Mm-hmm. And if it's not, I have a responsibility to speak from that truth.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you both.
Yeah. Thank you. I love it. You are awesome.
Yeah. Well, wealth of information, Gina.
Yeah.
Lots of stuff. Yeah. I didn't know you had that much background in the hospice. Yeah.
Thank you.
I mean, good for you. Motivational interview with doctors. Good for you. But sometimes they can't. Good for you. And it takes time to get, it takes years of experience to be able to do that with doctors, because I find that they don't like to be questioned like that. So good for you.
And I have every intention in continuing the conversation. So I'm working on that curriculum too. So.
Okay.
Yeah. But we have to be honest too, because mental health professionals, some of them don't like to be questioned either. It's real. I see it on a daily basis. Gina, you pointed out something that sometimes it's just, we're tired. Can I just be real? We're tired. Even as a mental health professional working in an organization, you still, I think even as a mental health professional, that you're qualified, you're able to do what it is that you need to do. And I always see things differently because trauma is my focus. Mm-hmm. And so I'm always digging deeper, because when I see certain things going on, I know there's something beneath it, like something else is going on. So I'm always digging deeper, and sometimes I become frustrated because I've seen so many people being treated for years for self-esteem, different issues, and never ever touched on the trauma. And so by the time they come to me, I'm like, why did anybody miss this? And if you can just get to the baseline of it all, and that's what we're trying to do, get to the root of it all, then you can better assist. You got to understand that. You can better assist. There may be some self-esteem issues there. Yeah, there may be some anger issues there. But what's beneath it? Right. And when we look at trauma, we see all of these layers. We see all of these layers, things that we're seeing in the African American community, but not being addressed. And because they're not being addressed, Dr. Fauci is his name. I loved it when he came out and said, look, once this pandemic is over, we're going to have to reevaluate as a country the African American community, the whole health system, all of that. And so, they've been trying to reevaluate according to America for years, and we still haven't gotten there. I simply think it's time for us as African Americans to educate ourselves and find out how to reevaluate our own community and start to do some things. Because truth be told, you ladies, African Americans, especially African American women, we are the most educated in the United States. We can do some things. We just have to stop limiting ourselves. And we can do some things within our community. That's why it's important for us to come together and start talking, but not only talking, thank you, Gina, making some action. Because we've waited for so long for a country to make moves for us, and they have yet to do it. And that's what the whole Black Lives Matter movement is about. That's what we see the protesting about, because people are trying to make some moves. They're saying, okay, we've waited on you all too long. We need to start making some moves. And we need to start making those moves because, yes, we're tired now. We're tired. And I need to regenerate. I need to find a better way because I'm tired of being tired. And the only way we're going to do that is to come together. Listen to me very well, because I'm going to end. Only way we're going to do that, you all, is to come together as a community. We need to come together as a community, start really having these conversations, and stop, again, I'm going to say it, we have to stop trying to be politically correct. Because no matter how you say it or what you say, you will never be politically correct. You just need to say it. You need to have the conversations. We need to start making some movements and start talking. Get on some platforms. Look, you're welcome to come on this one. And let's talk. We have to start doing it. That's the only way. We're really going to start digging deeper. Get to the root of it. So yeah, we can start dealing with those branches. I love it. So I thank you ladies again for being here. Thank you for watching this special edition of Intake. And until we meet again, remember to continue to talk about mental health and how to make yours a priority. Have a great one. Join us next week for a discussion on economics and the African American community. If you're a professional who would like to be on the show, or an individual who has struggled with mental health and would like to be a guest, email us at info@intake.tv.
Follow us on all of our social media platforms.
If you'd like to learn more about Intake or our guests, visit our website at intake.tv. Join the conversation by making a comment below.